All right, guys, so today is a rare occasion because I have unambiguously good news that I want to talk about. Last night, an immigrant Muslim socialist, Zohran Mamdani, soundly, confidently wiped the floor with the disgraced sex pest corrupt establishment ghoul, Andrew Cuomo. So here are the results in the New York City Democratic primary for the position of mayor. Up here at the top, we got Zohran, 432,000 votes, 43.5% of the votes. And keep in mind, they have ranked choice voting. So this is the first round. You have Andrew Cuomo, 361,000 votes at 36%. And then you have Brad Lander down here with 112,000 votes or 11.3%. And Brad Lander, as well as Zohran, cross endorse each other. So in the ranked choice voting system, you would assume that a vast majority of these votes are going to go to Zohran as well. Now, most people from the predictions that I was reading ahead of this election thought maybe Zohran has a chance, but if he has a chance, it'll be with Andrew Cuomo winning the first round that's counted on the day of, and then as the ranked choice voting system plays out, maybe some of these votes would end up going to Zohran and then he could squeak out a win. But that's not what happened. Zohran, again, confidently defeated Andrew Cuomo in the first round. So this was not even particularly close. And even if you go, borough by borough here in New York City, Zohran confidently won in Queens. He confidently won in Brooklyn. He confidently won, or this one a little bit closer, but pretty solidly in Manhattan. But then even in his weakest places, like in Staten Island, I mean, this was not a massive, loss here from Zohran. People were expecting Andrew Cuomo to absolutely dominate in this, and he only ended up winning by what, like 2,500 votes in Staten Island? I mean, same thing here up in the Bronx. This was a little bit more confident for Andrew Cuomo, about a 20% margin there, but this was a complete seismic shift in what should be the understanding in the Democratic Party in terms of a corporate establishment figure versus an insurgent, openly self-declared socialist, a left-wing populist figure, and what kind of energy the Democratic base of voters is looking for. Now, we continue, just as a reminder, before we get to some of the hysterical freakout that we've seen from corporate media and from Republicans and even some Democrats as well. Just to remind you of the circumstances that we were talking about here, the wall that Zohran was up against. I mean, this is pro-Cuomo super PACs that have flooded the mayoral fundraising race. And you can see here the fundraising difference. I mean, Zohran was in second place here with $9.1 million raised, but a vast majority, almost the entirety of the money that he got was from either small dollar donations or matching public funds. And then Andrew Cuomo is up here at the top, where a vast majority of the money that he raised, which was up to $35.6 million, was from super PACs. He was getting money from, the landlord lobbying organizations, from Republican billionaires. I mean, this is a perfect side-by-side comparison in terms of what each of these candidates represents. Zohran representing average working class people, and Andrew Cuomo representing the establishment and large corporate interests. We also had not only big moneyed interests against Zohran and in favor of Cuomo, but we also had the mainstream media. I mean, the New York Times, their editorial board, when they were doing their endorsement, said, don't rank Mamdani. They said straight up, don't rank him, not, rank him behind Andrew Cuomo or maybe third or fourth, or they just said, don't put him on the ballot. I mean, this is how much the deck was stacked against him. We also had the aspect of Andrew Cuomo sort of taking this situation for granted, obviously not taking Zohran seriously, and thinking he could just sort of coast to a victory. So on that front, we have Ross Barkan here, a New York journalist who is lambasting the Cuomo campaign in terms of the lack of effort and how shitty of a campaign it actually was.
And this has been a really lackluster front-running campaign. I think it's the worst I've ever seen, to be frank. He might still win, but this is the worst front-running major campaign I've seen on any level from president down to local. It's really quite bad.
And why would you say that? Just because they're just not showing up or their votes aren't in yet?
I think the total lack of showing up, the lack of effort, Cuomo's sort of absent media strategy. I get it. You're gonna get tough questions, right? But I mean, you could probably literally count on two hands the number of times he just has done open questions with reporters, like gaggles, press
Mhm.
conferences. I mean, really very little media interaction. I think just little things. The signage is really bad. I mean, this is an aesthetic thing, but I remember when I went to his kickoff in March at the same place I'm actually about to go to, the Carpenters Union, and I saw these signs. They looked like they were designed by like an untalented fifth grader. Like they're really the worst.
Okay, so again, Cuomo not taking it seriously, running an extremely lazy, like sort of privileged campaign as if like my last name is Cuomo, I deserve this sort of by default. And that could not contrast with the way that Zohran ran his campaign more. I mean, he had tens of thousands. I think it got up to like 50,000 people who were volunteering for his campaign, going around knocking on millions of doors. I think they knocked on over 50,000 on the day of the election when it was like 100+ degrees outside. Obviously massive grassroots energy in Zohran's campaign. Again, tons of small dollar donors. And he was, actually trying to go and interact with people, like walking the streets of New York and talking to people and seeing what their grievances are and, what he could potentially do to materially improve their lives. So, I mean, totally different campaign structures there. We also had the guy Brad Lander, again, who came in third place, who came out and told Cuomo after he lost this to basically eat shit. Let's go ahead and watch this short little clip.
Andrew Cuomo is in the past. He is not the present or future of New York City. Good fucking riddance.
Shout out to Brad Lander. I mean, seriously, this is, this reminds me of the 2020 Democratic primary when Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders, or really more so Elizabeth Warren, was sort of going after Bernie Sanders instead of trying to form an alliance and potentially endorsing him when it was clear that he was running away for the left-wing side of the equation in that primary, and she continued to stay in the race and sort of pulled votes from him. Brad Lander, and this is a little bit different because it's ranked choice voting, but he saw that Zohran was ahead. He felt much closer ideologically or on policy to Zohran, and he didn't want Cuomo to win. And so they cross-endorsed each other, and he supported Zohran through the end. And these votes, I mean, this is not insubstantial. I mean, it didn't end up necessarily mattering because he ended up winning in the first round of voting. But if this had been closer, or if Andrew Cuomo had won the first round, then it was vitally important that these votes in the ranked choice voting system ended up going to Zohran. So shout out to Brad Lander there for being a team player throughout all of this. I think seriously that made a real impact in this election. Now we move on to the hysterical baby shit that I've been seeing in corporate media and from many Republicans in response to Zohran winning. Now, to set the context here, as a reminder, the things that Zohran was running on, right? He's not talking about like setting up a vanguard to run through the streets and kidnap billionaires and throw them off of bridges. That's not what he's talking about here. Zohran was running on, free and fast buses. He was running on expanding childcare, freeze the rent, and build more rent-stabilized housing. Like, these are the kinds of things that he was running on. Just basic societal improvements, right? For average working class people. And this is the response that we have been getting.
Gotham. Have you seen what Batman is up against in Gotham and what the guy running for mayor is up against? That's what it reminds me of. They're taking Wall Streeters and make him walk out onto the ice in the East River as and hope, and then they fall through. Yep, I mean, there is a class warfare that's going.
So what's happened here, I think,
is the rich type.
There's a division with.
So the rich are going to be eaten. They are, like in the Batman movie, going to be pushed out onto the ice to eventually fall to their doom. Again, keep in mind what we're talking about here. We're talking about free buses, right? We're talking about like improving public transportation, expanding childcare, and freezing the rent, right? Making housing more affordable. That's what we're talking about here. And he equates that to rounding up and killing billionaires. Is that's the plan for Zohran's campaign? We continue. Here's another one from Jim Cramer.
It is not the closing of a steakhouse that David Zaslav likes to, and you like to go to. Well, you and I have had dinner there a few times.
Yes. And you and I are going to recreate that place.
The rent's too high. You know what? The new mayor, potentially, of New York is going to freeze the rents, and everybody eats for free, so they don't have to worry.
Really?
Yeah.
But how about the rich?
No.
Do they get shot?
No, yes. They get taken away.
Are we kulaks?
Yes, they get taken away.
Lenin?
We have to go.
In 23?
We have to leave now. But everybody else, there he is.
So this is Lenin. Again, we are setting up the vanguard. Billionaires, the rich, are going to be lined up and shot, according to Jim Cramer, over free buses, right? Expanding childcare, freezing the rent, making housing more affordable, and public grocery stores. That was another one of Zohran's policies, which is actually incredible, by the way, because he's funding, I think it's like one or a couple public grocery stores, publicly owned grocery stores, where the cost will be brought significantly down because you're not worried about profits. And he's going to build one in each of the boroughs. And the way that he's paying for it is by pulling from some of the funds that are already being given out as corporate subsidies to large food chains in the city of New York, or large grocery chains in the city of New York. So that's a great policy, especially on something so core to what Americans have been dealing with over the last couple of years, which is increased grocery prices, right? Which is also amazing from conservatives who have been, making that a core issue of, especially the 2024 election was, the price of eggs are too high, or grocery prices are too high, or housing is unaffordable, or whatever. And it's like, then you have a guy who actually steps in and he wants to address those things. And then suddenly that's communism. That's terrifying. That's scary. We're all going to die. I mean, it's ridiculous. It reminds me of Chris Matthews back in the 2020 Democratic primary, basically saying, comparing Bernie Sanders to Hitler at one point, and Bernie supporters to the brown shirts, and saying that there were going to be executions in Central Park if Bernie Sanders won that election. Now, again, as a reminder, in terms of the baseline policies that Fox News is putting up here on the screen for us all to cry and shit our pants over, I guess: housing, freeze the rent, build affordable housing; on affordability, creating city-owned grocery stores, fare-free buses; on labor, raising the minimum wage to $30 by 2030, ending cooperation with ICE; and LGBTQIA protections. Absolutely horrifying stuff there. Now, we move on here to some conservatives. Charlie Kirk, for example, is going full Islamophobic on the timeline, not even hiding it at this point. We have him responding to a tweet here from Patrick Bet David that said, Sharia law is the end goal. New York City is just the opening move. And Charlie Kirk says, time for the West to wake up. Mohammed El Kurd jokingly said on his feed, consider the Intifada globalized. He said this as a joke, right? And Charlie Kirk says, they are rubbing it right in our faces. And then he goes on to compare it to London, Calgary, Rotterdam, and soon New York City. I mean, just think about this, guys. Like, Zohran Mamdani he's a normal guy, right? He's not crazy. If you listen to anything that he's ever said, or the interviews that he gives, or what he's running on, like, again, this is just like basic, hey, let's like kind of try to improve society for working class people. And they're like, no, the actual goal is Sharia law. Sharia law. It's just brazen Islamophobia. It's just, hey, here's a Muslim guy. Let's try to freak everybody out about that fact. I mean, I even saw people bringing up like 9/11, saying like, 2 decades ago, Muslim terrorists attacked New York City, and now you have a Muslim jihadist who's going to run New York City, as if like Zohran Mamdani had anything to fucking do with 9/11. I mean, again, it's brazen racism and Islamophobia that we're witnessing. Here's another one from Elise Stefanik. She says, TikTok, Kathy Hochul, we know you are in full-blown panic mode as you frantically draft and send out a congratulatory tweet to the anti-Semitic jihadist communist candidate you helped elect to your party's Democrat primary because of your silence, weakness, and ineptitude. Calls him anti-Semitic and a jihadist communist. We also have here from Ari Fleischer, the previous spokesperson for the George Bush administration, or press secretary, who says straight up, evacuate New York City now. Thank you for your attention on this important matter. Evacuate New York City. I'm sure that Israel is about to come out and talk about how Zohran is dangerously weeks or days away from having a nuclear weapon and that we need to militarily intervene. We also have, again, in terms of the anti-Semitic smears against Zohran Mamdani, this has been relentless. This has been a key fixture of the opposition to Zohran Mamdani, is that he's a scary Muslim, he wants Sharia law, he's brazenly anti-Semitic, and of course by anti-Semitic what they actually mean is that he is a principled critic of Israel, and he is pro-Palestine. He is against the genocide in Gaza. He is in favor, shockingly, controversially, of international law. So just as one example here, we had Stephen Colbert. He was on his show with Brad Lander side by side a couple of nights ago. And just listen to like the opening questions. These were the opening questions from this interview from Stephen Colbert. And this is a liberal that we're talking about.
Did Israel have the right to exist?
I support the vision of Israel as a Jewish and democratic state.
Mr. Mamdani, same question. Does the state of Israel have the right to exist?
Yes, like all nations, I believe it has a right to exist and a responsibility also to uphold international law.
Okay, well, let's talk about the elephant in the room, is that there are many people in New York, even people who would support your candidacy otherwise, who don't want to support you because of the Jewish community's fear of the true and rising anti-Semitism, not only around the world, but in this country and shamefully in New York, which is the largest Jewish population of any city other than Tel Aviv in the whole world. And they are worried. They're very upset by some of the things that you've said in the past.
Okay, so first off, as a reminder, we're talking about a guy who's running to be the mayor of New York City, not the mayor of Tel Aviv, right? We're talking about the mayor of New York City. And this was the same thing as the debate between him and Cuomo and the rest of the candidates. This was also a question they asked, was about where's the first place that you'll visit? And then when Zohran dared to not say Israel, they questioned him on that, as if it's anti-Semitism. I mean, it's utterly deranged that we're talking about an election in a major city in the United States of America, and they're being forced to like pledge loyalty to Israel. What are we talking about here? What are we talking about here? And the implication of that question is incredibly dishonest, because when they say, does Israel have a right to exist? Of course they don't mean, does Israel have a right to exist? Because Israel does exist in reality. What they really mean is, does Israel have a right to exist as it does right now? Meaning an apartheid ethno-state, right? A settler colonial project that is in the midst of an ethnic cleansing in the West Bank and a genocide in Gaza. That's what they mean by the question, does Israel have a right to exist? They mean, does Israel have a right to exist as it does in its current formation? And the answer to that is no, right? The principled answer to that is no, it does not have a right to be an apartheid state. It does not have a right to carry out a genocide. It does not have a right to forcibly displace Palestinians in a slow-rolling ethnic cleansing in the West Bank. So it's a ridiculous question just by itself. But again, then the further implication that Stephen Colbert goes on to there is like, Jewish New Yorkers are afraid of you and think, what, I guess that you're like a secret terrorist or something? That you're anti-Semitic because you've criticized a foreign government? I mean, it's just, it's all so insane that this has taken such a centerpiece in this kind of a race, but in American politics broadly. Now, Zohran has done a fantastic job at answering those kinds of questions and dealing with it, even though it's all, again, very dishonest. But he did a good job. And, as Stephen Colbert was saying there, New York City, outside of Tel Aviv, has the largest Jewish population in the world. And Zohran Mamdani just won. So clearly, either people weren't buying that he's some sort of a rabid anti-Semite, or maybe he's not actually a rabid anti-Semite, right? Now we move on, again, here from Fox News, losing their mind over something that Zohran said about Benjamin Netanyahu, who is a wanted fugitive war criminal who has warrants out from the International Criminal Court. And here's how Fox News is reacting to his win.
This guy said that he would arrest Benjamin Netanyahu for crimes against human rights if he came to visit New York City. This is what this guy said. This guy said he wants to replace police officers with social workers, Sean. If you need help because you need the NYPD, this guy says, no, we're going to send you a social worker instead. This is a disaster, maybe unbelievably worse than Chicago, worse than LA.
Okay, so on the policing side of that, Zohran isn't even a defund the police guy, right? Like, he wouldn't even be necessarily aligned with my position on that. But what he's talking about with social workers is something that's actually wanted by police officers themselves, who don't want to have to be dealing with things that are not serious crimes, that they're being asked to do a million different things that they're not qualified for, they're not well trained for, and put people in dangerous situations. So what exactly is the problem with having social workers go out and handle situations that would call for a social worker instead of an armed guard of the state? I mean, that's not a radical proposal in any way, shape, or form. And as you heard there from the beginning of that clip, yeah, Zohran said, as international law demands, that if Benjamin Netanyahu, a wanted fugitive war criminal who has warrants out from the International Criminal Court, stepped foot in New York City, that he would be arrested. That's not radical. That is following in accordance with international law. That's what that is. And credit to Zohran for, again, being principled on that, contrary to Andrew Cuomo, who joined a high-powered legal team to defend Benjamin Netanyahu against the International Criminal Court's war crime claims. So put these two side by side. This is why I say it's a major, major victory on every single level. Finishing off here, a couple more things. Point here from Daniel Denvier. He says, Zohran's victory is an earthquake. The left everywhere must dedicate itself to an insurgency against Dem incumbents. True, the Dem establishment has lost credibility with its base in the face of a fascist threat. The base is looking leftward for new leadership. We are the opposition party. And he's entirely correct. This is a seismic shift. Probably, I mean, you can make a case even bigger than Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez upsetting Joe Crowley a couple of years ago in New York City. This is possibly even bigger than that and is absolutely going to send shockwaves and should terrify much of the Democratic establishment. And, he's right. The leadership of the Democratic Party, these corporate establishment ghouls, have lost all credibility. I mean, look at Chuck Schumer. Look at Hakeem Jeffries. How on every single level they are absent from genuinely fighting against Donald Trump, from having any sort of bold vision for the future, or being principled on policies that actually materially affect the lives of average working class people. They're just figureheads. They're figureheads who stand in for AIPAC and for other corporate lobbying organizations. They are nothing. And even liberals at this point, not just leftists, but liberals, understand that now. And so you see, what should have been a cakewalk in any normal situation for somebody like Andrew Cuomo to be elected for New York City mayor. And you see, no, even liberals are fed up, so much so that they would vote for, a guy who openly calls himself a socialist in the largest city in the country. So, I mean, this is the time, as he points out there, for, if you have any inclination of trying to run for office, I mean, this is the time to unseat establishment figures. We have here, just to back that up, this is a Pod Save America guy, so definitely within the Democratic liberal establishment sort of ecosystem. And even he says, what's happening in New York City is a blaringly loud message to those in the Dem establishment who still cling to old politics, recite focus group talking points, and are too afraid to say what needs to be said. We have a lot to learn from his campaign. And as a reminder here, 62% of Democrats think their party's leadership should be replaced. 62%. So this is the time. I mean, this is the time as much as any. It'll be interesting to see what happens in the upcoming midterm elections, how many potential Democratic establishment figures get taken out by left-wing insurgents. But, again, rare occasion on this channel that we actually had good news. I mean, Zohran ran a fantastic campaign. He was relentless. He was meeting people on the ground. He had a principled set of policies that he repeated over and over and over again, so much so that as he would walk the streets of New York, people would be yelling out, freeze the rent and free buses and all of those things. So fantastic campaign from Zohran Mamdani. Fuck Andrew Cuomo. Get out of politics. Rotten hell. I mean, there still is the potential opportunity here where Andrew Cuomo could run as an independent in the following upcoming election that's going to happen. You also have Eric Adams that is running, I guess, as well as an independent. And then you have the Republican candidate who's going to run in the general election. So I don't know if Andrew Cuomo is going to try to run, given that he was just soundly defeated by Zohran this time around. It's possible, but the fight is it's not over. This is a major victory, but he still has to win in the general election. So we'll stay tuned for that. I think it's a couple months out, but yeah, I mean, for today we can celebrate a little bit. Finally, some good news on the timeline. It feels good to get a win like this.
Politic guy has the best politics. Believe me, no one does it like him. Believe me, everyone is saying